Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today I want to tell you why most of you are flying your Airbuses too low in the flight simulation. Or respectively the other way around, why most Airbuses in real life fly higher than you normally would in flight simulation. And this comes down to quite an exciting feature that I just about learned of during my Airbus type rating. Be aware that at the moment I have still not had the entire theory lessons, so what I say in this video regarding the real Airbus may not be exactly completely true quite yet, as I'm still in training. Alright, with that set aside, let's now have a look into what the topic for today's flight is. Now we are currently cruising along, and looking into the FMC down here, we can see we've got an optimum of flight level 370, maximum 398, and we're cruising at level 380 on about a 2-hour flight. Gross weight is just shy of 60 tons. Now, in flight simulation, most of you would probably climb to flight level 380. But I departed an hour earlier. By that time, the optimum level was still at 360, which would have been a perfect cruising level going into the west, wouldn't it? Well, yes and no. And in order to understand that, let's first of all have a look at a couple of real-life examples. And we are going to start with this one. This is taken straight from Flight Radar 24. So here we have a typical holiday flight on a German holiday airlines from Frankfurt to Antalya. And this is a roughly 3-hour flight. This one took in particular 3 hours and 5 minutes. And if we take a look into how high they flew, we can see that they climbed up to flight level 370 pretty much straight away. So they climbed to flight level 370. Now, most of you who are experienced with the Airbus in your flight simulator will probably say that, wait a moment, how can they go to flight level 370? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Either they fly empty, or they're doing something dangerous. Well, and that is exactly where today's topic comes in handy. I created the same flight on SimBrief up here, and as you can see, the SimBrief flight plan got me up to 35,000 feet, rather than 37 when I take a load of 162 passengers. Keep in mind, those aircraft usually have 180 seats, so 162 would be a realistic payload for a flight like that. And we can see that it only wants me to step climb a 370 almost over halfway throughout the flight over here at Sosak, still 3.5, and then later it goes to flight level 3.7. When you approach Bulgaria, so that's really like 2/3 down the flight. However, as we can see in real life, the guys went to 370 straight away. Now, you're going to ask, well, so why is that? And the reason is simple. The data we get to see inside our Airbus simply is wrong. Now, before you start screaming at Phoenix for doing something that would apparently be wrong, let me tell you no. The data Phoenix shows is what the real Airbus would show, but the real Airbus is not going to show you entirely exact, accurate data. Now, what do I mean with that? Well, in order to understand that, let's have a look into one of the real Airbus apps that are part of most Airbus pilot EFBs. Now, the very good news over here is you can actually find them for free in the Apple App Store. So if you have an iPad, then go ahead and download them. Just search for Fly Smart, which basically brings you all those Airbus apps. Now let's quickly switch over to the screen on my iPad and we're going to enter a couple values. Before we do that, very quick look over here. We currently have a gross weight of 59.5 with a CG of 28.6. ISA deviation +4, and we have a headwind component that's in the region of somewhere of 12 knots. So remember that, and now let's head over and have a look what the real Airbus performance software is going to predict for us. Alright, and this is what the real Airbus software looks like. This is a free demo that you can download from the App Store, and this lets you calculate exactly what I'm talking about in this video. So first of all, we're going to enter a flight number. Let's say we're at test, and since it is a demo, we don't have any airports available, but we don't need them for this one. So now let's go onto the cruise icon over here, and this brings us to the interesting thing. As you can see, I kinda pre-filled a couple of those things already, but let's just update them with the latest data from our simulated flight. So let's click on modify, and then we said we got a headwind of 12 knots, It is 4 degrees warmer than the ICAO standard atmosphere, our gross weight is 59.5 and the CG is 28.6. Cruising altitude 380, cost index 10, and the rest of it we're going to leave at the standard values. Now let's compute this. So what do you see on the screen over here? Well, the important thing is at the very bottom. That is the altitude tab, telling you the receivable maximum and the optimum. And look at that, we got an optimum of flight level 390. Do you remember what the Phoenix showed us? Right, 370. So as you can see, the real optimum for the flight is 2,000 foot higher than the optimum shown to us by the FMC. Now, why is that? Well, the AIRBUS FMC is a rather old and conservative computer, and it is programmed to be more conservative. So, for that reason, many airlines are using the original AIRBUS software in order to calculate the real values in order to fly more economically than if they would simply trust the AIRBUS computers. Now, what really surprised me over here, I talked to a couple people who actually fly the airplane, and they said that the optimum level calculated from the app might be even higher than the maximum or than the receivable maximum level calculated by the actual aircraft. So it can happen that you climb above what the FMC tells you is your receivable maximum. And if you look at the speed indicator in those situations, you will notice that you have a gap up and down to the limit speeds that is quite similar to what a 737 gives you in actual cruise flight. Alright, let's head back into our flight simulator and have another look into what this exactly is going to look like. So we are back in the simulator, and the important thing over here, just look at this again. Optimum 370 versus optimum level 390 from the real deal. And that is quite a difference, isn't it? The values, as you can see, we are now 200 kilos lighter than we used to be before I started my iPad recording. But apart from that, the rest of the values still applies. ISO deviation plus 4, a little bit of headwind there, 12-13 knots, and the important thing over here, gross weight and center of gravity are still unchanged. So, as you can see, you can easily fly quite a bit higher with the real Airbuses than the Airbus computers indicate to you. Once again, I would like to point out this is not a bug in the Phoenix, but it is actually something happening with the real Airbus as well. Now, if you have a look at SimBrief, you will notice that SimBrief actually plans lower flight levels for you. So if we once again head over to our planned flight that we used to recreate the one we saw on Flight Radar, then you will actually notice that SimBrief actually plans you at lower levels, which are more in line with what the optimum in the simulated Airbus tells you. Now, I can't tell you exactly why that is. However, I do suspect that SimBrief uses some predefined values, which are probably derived from some Airbus performance tables, which are then again close to the Airbus computers. So, if that makes sense to you, basically SimBrief is using some rather basic values. However, there are cases where quite the opposite is happening in SimBrief as well. And I've had quite a couple of cases in the past where SimBrief planned me at a flight level that exceeded what the FMC told me would be the receivable maximum. And I always thought it was a SimBrief bug, but apparently under certain circumstances SimBrief can do those calculations correctly. And most importantly, you would actually fly that stuff rather than trusting the FMC numbers over here. So let's recap the content of this video. The optimum and maximum levels shown to you in the Airbus computers are not necessarily correct. Indeed, I typically found, I've tried this like 15-20 times now, and every time I found the real optimum level to be somewhere in the region between 2,000 and 3,000 feet above what the Phoenix FMC indicated to me. Now, I talked to a couple of guys flying the actual Airbus, and they confirmed to me that indeed there can be large differences. I don't know if 2,000 or 3,000 feet difference would be accurate or not. I simply don't fly the A320, and I won't either. I'm doing an A330 type rating at the moment. Keep that in mind. So apparently you can typically climb at least 2,000 feet above the optimum level indicated to you in the AIRBUS FMC. Now, the AIRBUS guys among you are gonna say, hey, that guy calls it an FMC. Yep, that's still some of the things I'm learning during my transition to the AIRBUS, getting used to the correct terms and so on, which is actually quite hard after you've used the old stuff for 5 years in a row, and prior to that for 10 years in flight simulation. Alright, that's gonna be it for today's video. Do let me know if you thought this one was interesting and if you want to learn more stuff like this. In any case, I would like to thank you very much for being here and watching. I'm very much looking forward to see you all again on the next one, and in the meantime, like, comment and subscribe, and if you really love what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below, or to see you as a channel member, which is going to give you exclusive early access to new content before it is released for everyone else. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.